And we will get started in just a minute. Thanks for everybody who's joined so far. We appreciate it. We're just gonna wait just a minute, couple 30 seconds maybe, and then we will get started. Some more people have come in, a couple more, and we will get going. Thank you. Okay, we're going to get started and people will join as we go. I just wanted to welcome everybody to the Bonnell Foundation Living with Cystic Fibrosis Education Scholarship webinar. And as a reminder, we are recording this, but we can't see you. So it's only the four of us that you'll see right now and our slideshow, so don't worry. If you want to ask any questions, you can go in the Q&A box and leave a question there. And Patricia, who will introduce shortly, she will be answering any questions that you have there. And I will start by introducing myself. I'm Laura Bonnell. I'm the founder of the Bonnell Foundation, Living with Cystic Fibrosis. We give college scholarships, obviously, lung transplant grants, and financial assistance to people with cystic fibrosis. So in addition to a college scholarship, if your parents need some financial assistance or you do with any of your bills, you can also apply to those. We also have done a lot of advocacy, which we're working on now, which you should be aware of as young people. The Rare Disease Advisory Council we're working on in Michigan, but in just about all of your states, those are being worked on. It's passed in 21 states, so hopefully you'll be a part of advocacy. And if you ever want to help us or volunteer at any kind of level, that would be great. It's something you can put on your resume and you can help from a different state, whether it's doing a 30-second video or just saying, how can you help? We can find something for you to do because it's great to have the young people in the cystic fibrosis community involved. And I'm going to introduce you to my daughters. And there they are. So that's Molly, and Emily has the Michigan State University paint on her cheeks. Molly is now 27 years old. She is living in London, England. She went to Parsons in New York. And then after graduating there, she went to Central St. Martin in London, England, where she got her master's in sustainable futures. And she's working there and doing all kinds of things, and she's on Trikafta. Emily graduated from Michigan State University in marketing and Spanish, and she is now working for an influencer. You might even know her. Her name's Pineapple Brat. That's the influencer, and so she's working for Alice and enjoying that. And the other thing I want to say is it's wonderful because my girls got scholarships at the Boomer Esiason Foundation. So there are a lot of places to get scholarships, and you should certainly check it out. Vertex Pharmaceuticals also gives scholarships as well. So that's really important that you kind of check around. So before we get started, I'm going to let Patricia, who is our social media director, quickly introduce herself, and then you will hear from Andrea Hoffman and Sierra Hicks, who are going to introduce themselves. They already went through this process that you'll soon be going through. So Patricia?
Hi, everyone. My name is Patricia Myers. I'm the social media director for the Bonnell Foundation. A little bit about me is that I am currently a Master of Health Administration student at Grand Valley State University in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So thank you all for coming tonight and joining this webinar, and I hope you all learned something about us. Now I'll pass it off to Andrea so that she can introduce herself.
Awesome. Thank you, Patricia. Like she said, my name is Andrea Hoffman. I am currently a junior at Ohio Northern University in Ada, Ohio. I am a double major in political science and public relations. I also have 5 minors within the College of Arts and Science as well. Like Laura mentioned earlier about the rare disease advisory councils popping up around the country, I serve on the Ohio Rare Disease Advisory Council as representing cystic fibrosis as a public member as well. I've done a lot of advocacy throughout my 21 years and really enjoy that and hoping to do that in my future. So I'll pass it off to Sierra.
Thank you, Andrea. Hello, everyone. My name is Sierra. I'm a freshman at Stockton University, and I'm majoring in criminal justice with a concentration in forensic investigation. This is my first year collaborating with the Bonnell Foundation, and I'm super excited because I've always been a big advocate for cystic fibrosis and spreading awareness to my friends and anything. So I'm really excited to join.
Thank you. And you're in New Jersey, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yay. All right, wonderful. All right, well, let's get started. Oh, first we're going to do a quick poll, and then we will get started. So if everyone can do that, and then wonderful. Well, that's great. I don't know if you can see our results. It's supposed to show you, but sometimes it doesn't work. But it looks like most everyone heard about this on social media, which is fantastic. So thank you so much for letting us know that. It's very helpful. And here we go. Share the results. And so Patricia's going to check the chat box. Just a reminder, if you have any, or is it the Q&A or the chat box?
It's the chat box. It's Kira
It's the
Taylor.
chat
She said, "Thank you all. I'm not sure if you can see me and my mom or not."
No, we cannot.
See you, but thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
Thank you so much. And we're not going to say anyone else's last name because we're protecting people's privacy in this, just FYI. I don't know if it shouldn't say anyone's name there. Oh, but it does. Okay. But no one else can see it except for Patricia. So, but yes, we're so glad you've joined us, everyone. Really, it's fantastic. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, Patricia. So, if you went over the website, I won't go over absolutely everything that's on here because you can read it yourself. And both of the students here, Andrea and Sierra, will be able to kind of walk you through it. But I think obviously, you have cystic fibrosis. You just need to show a letter that says that you have cystic fibrosis. In order to qualify, you have to be an undergrad, but you can apply for trade school, you can apply for university, and you can apply if you're going to community college. So that's really well. And one of the most important things is include your student ID, make sure it's the correct number, and your contact information, especially if for some reason you start using maybe the university you're going to, that email, and then all of a sudden we can't get a hold of you. It's happened twice that people were going to be awarded a scholarship, but we couldn't get a hold of them. They didn't leave any correct information for us. And so we ended up giving those scholarships to other people down the list because we couldn't contact them in any way. So we don't want that to happen to you. So make sure that your student ID and your phone number and your contact information is correct so that we can get a hold of you. The other big thing is don't go over the word count. I'm not sure why, but people sometimes don't follow that. And those are just really simple things. Don't go over 300 words and make sure you answer the question. Some people didn't even answer the question. I don't know, they just wrote whatever they wanted and then they're disqualified. So those two things are really important. And then we can go to the next slide. Eligibility, we pretty much talked about, but you can be in high school. You can be a freshman. As long as you're an undergrad at any point, you can apply. And let's see what else. Yep, and we've talked about most all of that. So right now, I guess, let's start with Sierra. Why don't you tell us kind of, how you felt the process was and what you think that people should know when they're applying?
I thought this process was pretty easy and straight to the point. The biggest advice I could say to someone that's getting ready to write the scholarship is that make sure you read carefully of what of like the directions and what you're supposed to have and what you're supposed to provide. Answer the questions thoroughly. But I had trouble when I was writing that when I couldn't go over the word count. And I write a lot and I have like a lot to say. So just be mindful of that. And yeah, it's pretty easy. That's it.
Thank you. Andrea?
Yeah, it was very simple. I did it on my computer, and it really took me probably an hour total, through different chunks of time collecting the information that I needed, as well as the doctor's note and coming up with the essay. I think the biggest challenge was thinking about the essay. So with such a deep question on like the future and what I could contribute to the CF community, it was a little bit difficult, but I think it's a good point to note that really be true to yourself. Even if you're not going into the medical field, there's ways that you are able to impact the CF community, whether it be a teacher, an advocate, a researcher, even that you just share with your family and friends and those that you meet about CF, because that really truly just spreads more awareness of CF, and helps to get more people knowledgeable about it, and then they can help in their careers in ways that they can. So I would say, and highlight your own experiences too. Make sure you have everything that you've done, even if you think it's, oh, I did one thing in high school that is like musicals or anything like that. Show your involvement, because that's important too as well. So, but it was fairly simple, and like Sierra said, pretty straightforward, which was nice. I know some other scholarships can be a little interesting with that, but it was very helpful in that sense.
Thank you. And I would also have to say, echo kind of what Andrea just said about being yourself. If you're not a writer, it's okay. Just need to express your feelings that you're having, and you don't need to give us the answer that you think we want to hear. Like the question is, science and innovation have greatly improved the lives of those living with CF. As a person living with CF, what are your plans to give back to the CF community upon graduation? You don't have to say, I'm going to be a scientist, I'm going to change the world. It could be, you know what, I want to stay out of the limelight. I don't want everyone to know I have CF, but in my community, I'm going to raise awareness. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be true to what you are. And I can tell you that when the board and the people that vote on these scholarships they want to hear who you are. And your scholarship essay is always better when you're saying who you are and your thoughts. Again, you don't have to be a good writer, just make sure that it's, that it's written well as far as grammar goes, and just get your message across. And the other thing, you can also do the same word count and do a video as well. Sierra, what other advice do you have for people who are just applying? I think one thing to know, right, is that you have to do it all in one sitting. You can't like save it and come back to it.
Yeah, definitely. So that's why I think like you should kind of prepare a little bit for like what like a student may expect to be asked. Like I would, because I actually wrote like a couple things down, just like typical questions that they would ask like in your scholarship. And I kind of thought that like I would need to show proof of like my diagnosis letter. So I already had reached out to my doctor asking them to send one. But I think, yeah, that you and Andrea, you guys touched on just being your authentic self the most. I think that's like the biggest point to make, because like they do really want to hear your life as a person with cystic fibrosis. Like they want to hear like the struggles that you went through, the struggles that you accomplished and everything like that. Yeah.
Andrea, did you want to add to anything to that?
Yeah, I would say I'm more of a tactical person in the sense that I know, especially if you're in college, getting transcripts can sometimes take a hot second through your registrar's office. So making sure that even if you're in high school too, that you have your transcript ready and bringing obviously your student ID number too, that's super important. But making sure you have all of this paperwork ready. So when you're sitting down, you can do it in one sitting and just be done with it. Really simple and easy in that sense. And two, always just really, I mean, think outside the box in the sense of, like Laura said, if you're not a writer, do the video, but also really showcase yourself within that, because that's how the only way that people can see who you are through this particular scholarship application. So definitely be creative.
Wonderful. Any questions, Patricia, do people have yet? Any other questions?
We do not have any questions right now, but I know that we received one that I would like to highlight and I would like to ask on the webinar, and that is what happens if someone is offered a scholarship, but then they're too sick to actually go to school the next semester or whenever they were planning to?
That's a great one, because we have actually had to deal with that. So if obviously, because you have cystic fibrosis, that's a high possibility. And we have honored, we're actually holding a scholarship for somebody. It's been 2 years now. She's having a lot of health issues, but we are holding the scholarship for her. So if, I hope that doesn't happen to anybody who applies, but if it does, we will hold your scholarship as long as possible so that when you are healthy, you can go to school and use that scholarship. So that is something that that we will do.
We did just receive another question in the Q&A, and someone asked, is there a deadline for the application and the essay?
Sure. And what's the person's first name?
Anonymous attendee.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to let you know, yes, the deadline is March 15th. So get it in by then. We did disqualify somebody who applied at 12:01. So we just are sticking to the deadline super tightly. So make sure that you apply maybe at the latest 11:30, before that deadline, in case you lose power in your computer or something crazy happens, because we do keep strictly anything that comes after midnight is disqualified. So that is a big factor as well.
And we have another question, which is, what criteria are the board members looking for? More creativity or grammar?
Both. We've had some with nice ideas, but the grammar was so horrible that the essay, it just, some of them were just so poorly written. I mean, you have to, the grammar counts. It has to be good. It can't be, I mean, you're writing an essay for up to $2,500, your grammar needs to be good. It has to, you have to do a good job on that. So that's really important. So you can have a couple people check it for you, write it yourself, but you can certainly have people look it over. Another thing I wanted to mention is your parents are wonderful. And I know when my girls were filling out college scholarships, we have an urgency to, oh, let me help you. Or, you know what, it's up to the people who are writing the scholarships. I didn't interfere with my girls. It was up to them to get the scholarships. So unless you are ill, your parents shouldn't be emailing me or any of us. It should be the, applicant who's emailing, because it's all up to you to make it happen.
We just received another question, and I would just like to remind if you guys could utilize the Q&A function rather than the chat function, that would be great, just because it's easier for us to keep track of who asked what. But another question was, how many applicants are there usually? And how many scholarships do you give each year? And then to follow up with that, can someone earn the scholarship multiple years?
Great questions. Who is that? Was there a first name or no? It doesn't matter if there wasn't, but great question. Whoever that was, it was a great question. So you can apply twice. You can get a scholarship twice. Either it might be your freshman year, it might be your junior year, it could be freshman, sophomore. Anyways, you can apply as many times as you like, but you can only get it twice. We have between 60 and 70 people who apply for the scholarships, and it depends on each year how much we're giving out and as far as how many people get it. One year 20 people got it, one year 15, one year it was 10. So that is a variable. And some people get 2,500, some people get 500. It just depends on how it all breaks down as far as who were our, top, because it's numerically the way that everybody votes. So it's picked by whoever got the top points, and then it goes on down. And that's how it is decided and awarded. So it's a very good, fair method. Let's see.
I think it would be nice if maybe you talked just briefly, maybe not too far into detail, but what you were just talking about in regards to how you remove all of the name and identifier information off of an application, and I'm assuming we assign it with a number, and that's how the voting members feed through. Is that correct?
We look at everybody's GPA, we look at all of that stuff. Your financial status, we don't even take that information, so we have no ideas. You could make $1 million, you could make $40,000 a year, it doesn't matter. That doesn't play any part in it. We're just looking at GPA and other factors, and we're looking at your essay as well. And if you gave us, obviously you have to give us all of the information. So the essay weighs heavy. I would say almost heavier than the GPA, just because we know, like my daughter Emily missed 52 days of school one year, so GPA is sometimes harder for people with cystic fibrosis. So the essay, video or written, really weighs heavily on the decision, because it's about telling your story and letting us know who you are. So I would say that is very important. Yeah, and Sierra or Andrea, how maybe more tips about the essay, because I think people are really worried about that, but I can't stress enough that really you just need to be yourself in it. But maybe if the two of you could give some more ideas. Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, for sure. So I remember my essay that I wrote this past year was about how I dealt with the pandemic living with CF. It also included one of my published pieces that I had, and more about what I was hoping to do within the next upcoming year with being on the Ohio Rare Disease Advisory Council and serving in that way. And so really just looking to what tomorrow could bring, in the sense of what I have done, but also will continue to do and continue to do in the future, and set realistic goals to those expectations. So, and sharing my story. A lot of it was explaining why I published a certain piece and what that was about. And so I really think share your story in that sense, but also come up with really great goals, and can be as easy as educating people around you, which is something that I like to do as well. So yeah, really be true to yourself. Grammar is always, Grammarly is a great thing too. I know I use that, having your parents look over it too. It's not only going to help you within the scholarship, but also down the road when you're going into college classes and you're gonna have to write papers and stuff. So that editing process, you can sort of refine and work out with some of the scholarships, including this one that you're applying for.
And Sierra, do you have anything to add to that?
Absolutely. I totally 100% agree with Andrea. My process for writing the essay was kind of what they teach you in like elementary school and middle school and high school, is to start with a rough draft and take notes first, and then, write your final copy. So I wrote some notes down specifically on what I wanted to make sure that I would touch on. Again, because I'm the kind of person that writes so many words and can just forget a couple of things that I really want to make sure I bring up. So I wrote some things that I really wanted to mention. I wrote a rough draft, and then I wrote a final draft. And of course, I had my parents and my grandmother look it over for me. And what I basically wrote about was kind of my whole life story, just dealing with cystic fibrosis. I made sure I touched on like how I dealt with quarantine and all that kind of stuff, because I specifically said that for others, quarantining was really bad and, isolating and just being stuck at home. But I think it really benefited me having CF, because a month prior I had received Trikafta, and I feel like being isolated and at home really helped strengthen my lungs along with the Trikafta, because then I wasn't surrounded by other people's germs in school. So I feel like that really gave my body like a really good boost. So I made sure I wrote that down. And I also kind of just touched on like how I would expect my the rest of my life and leading into college with the Trikafta, because it is such a blessing.
It is. It is.
We did
And
receive a few questions in the
sure.
Q&A. Okay. Two of them are in regards to whether like the decision of receiving a scholarship or a grant. One person asked, did the student's major play into the decision of receiving a scholarship? And does school involvement or something like extracurriculars play a matter into being considered for a scholarship?
What your major is does not matter, but the whole rounded student and person that you are definitely is part, in addition to the essay, if you're involved, like what you're doing. It doesn't have to be CF related. Again, it doesn't have to be like, you've done 65 things, 65 roses. Yeah, see that? So it doesn't mean that you have to have done a ton in the CF community, but yes, a extremely involved student person, it does help as well, but it isn't mandatory by any chance, and it goes along with either the video or the essay that you write. And there was another question?
Yeah, so there's two more. Another one just came in, but to follow up with what you just said with the essay or the question, someone asked, does the video relate to the same essay question, or is the video something else?
The video should be the same question, and get creative as you want. If you want to do like some really cool background, or you want to animate yourself, or all of you are, I'm sure, much more experienced at that than I am, but just you can sing it on a guitar. You can, whatever you want to do in your video. I mean, it's only 300 words, so it's not long, but you'll learn how to be precise, but just be creative and have fun with it.
And another question is, I'm in my last semester of my undergrad program. Do you still need a letter of acceptance or will an official transcript work okay?
If you're in your last semester, if I'm understanding you correctly, if this is your last semester in your undergrad, then you can't apply because you would have graduated by the time the scholarship, you would get the scholarship would be the fall. So you wouldn't be an undergrad anymore. You would be done with your undergrad, if I'm understanding what you're asking correctly. And if I'm not, you can email us at the Bonnell Foundation at gmail.com. So hopefully that helps you. I didn't want to take up any more of your time. If there's any more questions, we can wait a second. Otherwise, can we do the next slide, Patricia? Thank you. Oh, that one, and then switch to one more. There we go. Just, oh, that's our website, which you know, and you can also email us as well. There it is. Yes, if you have any more questions, you have until March 15th. You shouldn't have, rarely has anybody ever had problems attaching anything. And I'm going to let Sierra go first and wrap it up with her advice, and then we'll ask Andrea, and then we'll be done. So go ahead, Sierra.
Hi, I think my biggest piece of advice, I've said this before, and you've said this before, and so has Andrea, I think is just to really just be yourself when applying for the scholarship. Tell your life with cystic fibrosis, and also like tell them about yourself, who you are as a person, what achievements have you done, what obstacles have you overcome, just about you as a whole, like your whole entire person, including CF, and just by yourself. And I think just, I think being prepared, having all your stuff for the essay, make sure you take notes. I would recommend doing a rough draft and then a final draft, having somebody you trust look over it definitely. And again, just be yourself.
Thank you, Andrea. Go ahead. And then I see we have another question we'll get to, but go ahead.
Sounds good. Like Sarah said, just be yourself, but also I think it's worthy to note that this is a safe space in the sense of if you really haven't shared much of your CF or are more timid about sharing CF in a certain way, this is a CF scholarship. So that's very nice in the sense of that the board would know that you have CF, but also it's a safe space to share that information and truly how you might be feeling. So be creative with it too. And just know that. Yeah, I think we've touched on a lot of things, but yeah.
And I did see the question that asked, when will the winners be notified? And that will be about a month after, about around April 15th, around tax day, I guess. In between, probably the last 2 weeks in April, the winners and people who did not get the scholarships will be notified at the same time. So yes, I just want to thank everyone for coming, and hopefully you got all your questions answered. If not, please give us an email. And again, if anybody wants to get involved in the Bonnell Foundation or any parents, just shoot us an email. We'd love to tell your story, and you can help us out. So thank you, and thanks to Andrea Hoffman and Sierra Hicks and Patricia Myers, our social media director. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thanks, you guys too.